producer. Melvin Marr, the executive producer. Randall Park, who plays Eddie's dad, Lewis. Constance Wu, who plays Eddie's mother. And of course, Eddie Huang, who is the producer and provides the voiceover narration. So I will start off the questions, but I would note we also have a hashtag up here. So for folks who want to provide questions, just tweet them there, and we will put them on cards and bring them up here. So let me start with Eddie. Eddie, is this an American story, an Asian American story, or both?
I like to look at it as a human story. I travel so much in the world for the Vice show, and I eat everywhere. And to me, the more you travel, the more you just realize people are really similar. But what I like about us is what makes us different. Do you know what I mean? So I think this is a real human story and an individual story about one kid figuring out who he is outside of all the labels and boundaries.
Eddie, what is it like seeing yourself on screen? Do you cringe a little bit? Does it bring back nice memories, bad memories of your childhood?
It's tough to watch the one scene I wrote when I wrote the book. I cried the whole time. When I met Natch, she told me she was going to pick this scene for the pilot, and it meant a lot to me because this is hands down my favorite scene, and to me, I think the defining moment of my life is I didn't understand at the time how hard it was for my mom to give up her tradition and culture and identity and take me to the white grocery store. And like it was out here, it was Magruder's, right? Magruder's. I remember she would take me to Magruder's, and I would like pinch the fruit, and she's like, "You're embarrassing us, stop pinching the fruit, you're embarrassing all of us." And for her to swallow her pride, realize that I didn't want to eat her food, and take me to the grocery store to get sandwiches, Lunchables. It was the day she got me that food, it was kid cuisine. It was that penguin frozen chicken nuggets with peas and carrots. And I got it because it had a penguin on it. And, I thought it was cute. But I didn't realize till I was writing the book that I was asking my mom to swallow 5,000 years of culture and history and to kind of throw it out the window so I could find a seat at the lunch table. And when I realized what I had asked her to do, I was like 29. I cried, and that was really tough. And it's hard to watch that scene the first time I was called to change. So, yeah, but I think that's what makes the show powerful, is that we've opened up those really personal moments and allowed people to kind of put themselves in the show as well. Because I'm sure it's happened to everybody here.
Yes. I think that's amazing. But it's so courageous to write that story in the first place, you know what I mean? And I think that's what attracted everybody. That's what, when I read the book, I was like, that has to be in the pilot. But to even write down that experience, it takes a lot of courage. It's not typical, you know, and I think it's incredible.
Nahnatchka and Melvin, thank you for raising that point. Talk to me a little bit about the challenges of adapting somebody's story and the creative liberties you had to take in doing that. And more importantly, will we be seeing a cameo by Shaq in an upcoming episode?
We're trying to get Shaq.
There is a basketball cameo. You'll see soon.
Yeah.
Great 90s star.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it is, it's definitely challenging because you want to be, this is weird, you want to be faithful to the original voice of the piece, but, you know, when you take something from the, you know, novel form, from a memoir, which is the most singular voice you can, you know, get, and you expand it for television, which is such a collaborative medium, you know, suddenly there's actors saying these words, and, you know, somebody's, designing the sets, and somebody's, there's wardrobe, and it comes to life. Like, all of those experiences sort of start to infuse it with a collective feeling. And I think, taking the sort of singular voice and making it a sort of collective experience is what we were really trying to do. And having people relate to it on a lot of different levels. Like, even if that specific thing didn't happen to you, the feeling of not belonging and the feeling of wanting to fit in that box, I think is something that a lot of people can relate to. So that was kind of the guiding principle for us.
Yeah, and I want to say is like, as we were sort of setting this up and the studio and network, we're very supportive of this story. We said from the outset that we wanted to tell Eddie's story when it was called, a slur. And from day one, everyone at 20th, everyone at ABC was like, swing for the fences, do it.
Constance, let me ask you, we were talking backstage and you said you all had met Eddie's family, and you had met Eddie's mother, and Eddie's mother is a big personality, as you could see on the screen. After meeting Eddie's mother, what did you take from that experience that you used in your portrayal of her?
Well, it's interesting because what Eddie said a few minutes ago about how he has traveled a lot and eaten a lot of different food, and he's sort of seen how at the baseline we're all the same, but then how he really likes to celebrate the way in which we're all unique. I think that's actually a good parallel to draw to our experience being collaborators on this show, is that we all come from a really good intention and a good heart, which is where I think Jessica Huang comes from. But the way that intention is carried out is sort of what determines the color of someone's character. And with Jessica, it's it's high standards. It's love that's expressed through high standards and through not having personal anxieties about other people's perception of her, but also having an incredible amount of empathy for her son's anxieties of perception. Because when you're a kid, that's what you do. You try on different identities. You sort of try to find your tribe, which you might not necessarily have to do with ethnicity. You could have to do with music or fashion or your career choices. And I mean, you see Jessica's really strong voice when you meet her. I mean, everybody here met her, and she is beyond description. I almost feel like I underplayed her, having met the real woman. But the fact that she also took Eddie to get kid cuisine and was like, you know what, I'm gonna let my kid find his voice, even though it might not necessarily be my voice, which I think is a real gesture of love, not in the way that we may typically think of it.
Yeah, the scene in the principal's office, Randall and Constance really captured who my parents were. And I think the thing that made them unique and different was when I got in trouble or they got in trouble, their first reaction was not to bow their heads and apologize and be quiet. They stuck up for themselves, and they felt like they had a right to be here, they had a right to be themselves, and they never backed off. And that's the thing I think we all share, and that's what we relate to.
They don't think, from meeting your parents, they don't think that their selves and their way is anything that they need to apologize for.
Yes.
Which is something I think has influenced your personal personality.
Yeah, I'm like the network version of my mom.
Yeah, you guys dress the same.
Yeah, pretty much. I think she has a purse that is in the same fabric.
Randall, let me ask you, you play two of my favorite characters on TV, Danny Chung in Veep, and obviously and Kim Jong-un in The Interview. It would be easy for me to ask you which of the three characters you've played you can relate to the most. Why don't you tell me what you related to in Eddie's father?
In Eddie's father, well, there's a lot I relate to. I mean, I'm also a father, and I will do anything for my kid. There's nothing more important to me than providing for my kid and loving my family. And at the root of Lewis is that. And we, like we said, we met Eddie's parents, and when I was out there, the one takeaway that I got for for Lewis that really spoke to me and how I would approach the character was he gave us a tour of Orlando, and he showed us around like all the sights, and he's just such a personable guy. I mean, he's a badass. In real life, this guy's a badass, but when he's out and about, you can't help but love the guy. I mean, he's just a great guy, and he showed us the old Cattleman's Ranch Steakhouse, which is now Hooters. He showed us the structure, and while we were there, I noticed just out of the woodwork, just people coming out wanting to shake his hand, and he'd know them by name. Just people that he used to know, like when he was there at the restaurant, and just how much people love this guy, and how much a part of the community he was, and that was definitely something that I took to, and I guess I could kind of relate to too, because I like to. I wouldn't say I'm a man of the people, but I definitely,
Supreme leader.
I'm somewhat of a supreme leader, I guess. But yeah, that was an element of his that I really saw, and that I also see in my own father. I mean, my father was a small business owner. He struggled to get the business off the ground for our family, and he also really engaged with the community, and that was something that I really respect, especially from an immigrant, to come out there and be one with the people. That's definitely was a huge takeaway for me.
Go to that question. Can we do one thing?
Absolutely.
My old friend Sally Smith set this whole thing up. I saw her go up and give the question. Everybody, Sally Smith's my old friend. This is Sally's idea, and she made it happen, so thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Sally.
Randall, let me stay with you, and actually I guess for Constance as well. This is a question we got off of Twitter from at George Lee. I'm sure his name is probably George Lee. We don't disguise our Twitter names too much, do we? What challenges do Asian American actors face that other minorities might not face?
I think we rarely get the opportunity to be the first or the second lead on a show and thus sort of carry the storyline. We always have opportunities to be like the fourth lead and help somebody else carry their storyline and help them have conflicts or have a confidant or things like that. But to carry our own story and say that's worthy enough to have its own show, an audience, I mean, that's rare. That's why this is kind of a big deal. And that's the challenge, is not always playing like the fourth lead.
And to go along with that, like usually the first or second leads, they're more developed as characters, and to be able to kind of play the gamut of emotions and to play all the layers of a human being. We don't have that opportunity, too often, and.
But hopefully that'll change.
Yeah, and hopefully our show will play a part in that changing, and hopefully we'll see a lot more Asian leads.
We hope this is like The Wire for Asian people. Create some jobs.
Let me ask the producers, and this is a two-part question. We've gotten this both off of Twitter and off of text. What would you say to critics who think your roles are adhering too much to Asian stereotypes? And then the second part of that is, why did you choose to use Asian accents?
Well, I feel like it's actually the opposite of adhering to Asian stereotypes. I feel like this family is so unique and specific, and they're just trying to survive and, follow their version of the American dream. They're relatable, they have a lot of flaws, and they're just a perfect sort of, to me, American family, and whatever that means to you, but like, it's not stereotypical at all. We're telling it from their point of view. the way they see the world. You know, they're not in a fishbowl. We're not telling the jokes pointing at them. We're telling the jokes from their point of view out. Like with Constance, with Jessica, and the rollerblading moms. You know, she's just trying to figure out what they're doing. You know, she's trying to make sense of this world around her. And like Eddie in school, you know, in the show. So I think that by creating a family with flaws and characters that aren't perfect, that to me is breaking stereotypes right there, because they're at the center, like you guys were saying, at the center of the story, it's the center of the show, and it's their story that we're following and that people are going to be watching every single week.
And I have to say that having read all the episodes and done all the episodes that you guys have written, I actually did see very much that the writers took pains to not make the jokes plays on stereotypes.
Exactly.
Now, it is a comedy, and there are people who I think are going to watch it and already have a stereotype filter in their head that they'll put on it. You know, you can't control what people find funny, but I definitely have to commend the writers for making a concerted effort to not try to use those like cheap tricks to do that. They based it in character and in situation.
All right, well, let me ask you that. Without relying on cheap tricks, was there something that you guys saw in the scripts and you said, yeah, we're not doing that, that goes too far, or that just plays into a bad stereotype?
I don't think so. No, just kidding.
There's one thing we had to change. Like, I think there's that scene where, like, I use the R word.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we just changed it to saying, instead of saying, don't date rape, just say no means no.
But that was like a standard issue.
Yeah, that didn't have anything to do with, like, stereotypes. It just had to do with, like, network TV.
Yeah.
No, the current things that are happening.
Current landscape. No, but I think that, you know, for us, it's like, because like Constance said, like, it's a comedy, you know, you have to have be able to laugh at yourself on some level in order to think it's funny. And I think a lot of times, like, if stuff doesn't play, if stuff's not working, we change it, we try to take that to heart of, like, why that's not playing, why that's not working. And I think, you know, along each step of the way, you get more and more refined as you find the voice of the show and things like that.
Let me ask each of you, I mean, this series is so rooted in music, it's rooted in the 90s. Do you have a kind of a favorite 90s reference that shows up in here, whether it's a song that shows up, a fashion fad that shows up where you're like, oh, I'm glad we included that, and it's or some pop culture reference?
Well, I know later in the episodes, I got my homie Brian Procell to get involved in the wardrobe. And this dude has the illest collection of 90s gear, low head, low life, like Caduce over here. He got all the good Snow Beach, the Suicide Ski, the cookie patches. So it's like there's a whole nother culture of low lives and low heads that, you know, they used to just steal polo from department stores, and I used to steal polo from department stores, so it's nice to see young Eddie in some polo that we bought.
That's the big change. That's what they're
Constance, Randall, anything that you kind of identified as a 90s reference, or you said, you know what, I really love this in the 90s, let's include this?
I mean, Eddie and I talk all the time. I was a hip hop head. I still am, like, deep in it, and that was like you know, it's an element of the show, and definitely something that I love. You know, I love, and you know, Biggie. And we go deeper than Biggie, and
I mean, I think we got him in a Duck Down shirt.
yeah,
So
we got that Duck Down shirt.
I definitely, like, I hit up Mobb Deep, I hit up Duck Down, I hit up Wu-Tang, they all gave us gear, and it just, I'm not sure which episodes they pop up, but man, Duck Down was the illest. Like Black Moon, Smith & Wesson, a couple of others. They took like the Super Mario beat and remixed it.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm always pushing for more B-sides. Like, I feel like the early episodes were heavy on the A-sides, but you gotta do the B-sides.
That's probably like a cool thing that we talked about, like hopefully in Success, you know, in season 2, doing like more sort of obscure you know, with references and songs, and even doing like a, you know, it would be great to do like a fresh off the book soundtrack, you know, like have that come out.
Yeah.
A-side and B-side literally. You know?
Yeah, I mean, like when I was in law school, I had J-rated Damager come to school and talk about the Telecommunications Act of '96. So it's just like, rappers got opinions, you know. If they take the chains off us for season 2, I mean, we could get real funky. Yeah. Free people.
Let me ask the producers. In terms of the show having longevity, Eddie's book, which I will recommend to folks, is a fantastic book. I mean, it is laugh out loud funny. Eddie's book really provides wonderful source material, but at some point you run out of source material and you have to sort of evolve beyond that. Let me ask you, do you all have a model of a TV show that has shown great longevity that you are modeling after?
Man, I mean, that speaks to like, there is no real model for what exactly we're trying to do. You know, first of all, there's been no show that's set in the 90s the way this is. You know, this is the first sort of sitcom to sort of take that tack. I mean, I don't know, is there a model for
The Wire, right?
Yeah. We want to create jobs like The Wire.
Yeah. The Wire with more jokes. But yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know. It's something exactly.
Television, I mean, like the great Norman Lear stuff, maybe?
Yeah.
I love Wonder Years. You know, I like My So-Called Life. I was one of those girls that cried in 7th grade when it got canceled. Yeah.
Eddie, let me ask you, your book is definitely your memoir.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing, of all the things I've read about you, I never really got this story, or I never really got the perspective of what your siblings think of this. Do they ever say, you know, Eddie, this is your version of what happens. I had a completely different upbringing. I didn't see it quite this way.
No, it's never completely different. It's my middle brother is really, they're both very smart guys. My middle brother is very emotional and intuitive, and he has his own perspective on everything that happened, and especially, and this is something I would love to see the show tackle, is domestic violence, because domestic violence is a huge issue in America today, and it is a very specific lens and this very specific issue for Asian American families, and especially with the domestic violence stories in the book, my brother felt it was worse. I think I look on it more retrospectively. When I wrote the book, I tried to be in the moment as possible and write about it in the moment. I've forgiven my father a lot more. Not even forgiven. I understand it. I understand why he hit me. I don't know if I agree with it. I don't know if I do it the same. It's one of those things in life I've never figured out. My brother feels like he's figured it out. He knows what he wants to say. And he's like, if I wrote the book, I would have come out in the open and been like, that's totally screwed up how he got hit at home. I felt like I probably was the kid out of the 3 of us that wasn't going to listen unless somebody hit me. So, and the 20th publicists know that. You know, I felt like sometimes I deserved it, and my brother was like, dude, you don't deserve it. Nobody deserves to be hit like you were hit. And so that's the one place my brother challenges the book. In every other way, though, I remember the night I finished the book, I took a big long rip, and then I sent it to Evan, and then so they were reading. Oh wow! So they were reading the book, and I probably did something like that to my chair. 5 hours later, I get an email from Emory, and he's like, "Dude, I was really worried about this book. I had no idea how you were going to portray us, but this is as objective and fair as I could have imagined." And he's like, "I couldn't have been this honest and fair, because I still have skeletons in my closet, and I still feel a certain way about what happened." But he's like, thank you. And that meant the most to me. My middle brother's approval means the most to me of anyone in my family. My mom still hasn't read the book. Yeah, I even sent it to her in an Alexander Wang bag, and she just took the bag. She's like, thanks for the bag. Yeah.
Where's my next
When purses can talk, I'll listen to the audiobook. But, no, yeah.
Eddie, your point is an interesting one, and it goes back to Melvin's point about the great sitcoms, the Norman Lear sitcoms. You can think about MASH, you can think about Cheers, which all were wonderful because they had the ability to blend comedy with realism. You know, they would get into drama. Can this show kind of take that turn into the serious? I mean,
I mean, you see in the pilot, you know, you say the word chink in the pilot. Like that is, and I think Eddie's even said, like, that's borderline crazy, you know, to sort of take that risk. And I think it lands so powerfully with the audience because you're laughing along the way and you're, you know, you're with this family and you're relating to it, and then it hits you, it comes out of nowhere because you're not expecting this, and you're certainly not expecting this from a network comedy, you know, whose job is, you know, to entertain and be light and laugh. And, you know, I think that we come out of the gate strong, and we want to continue that, you know, as much as we possibly can. And I think it's really important, and I think that's the kind of thing that, like, you know, we all want to do as storytellers, and we also want to, you know, we're not trying to teach lessons every week, because people don't need to learn lessons from us, but we're just trying to show experiences that people haven't seen before, and have them take their, you know, take it from there.
I mean, my New York Magazine article is out there. People know how I feel about this process and how difficult it is to watch, like, your New York Strip memoir go through the sausage grinder and come out the other side. But, like, you know, Peter Luger's got a good hamburger too, and I like it for lunch. And I would say this, man, is I wrote that article because I think it's so important for studios and networks and writers to hear what people have to say. Like, to hear from Asian Americans themselves as individuals, and then we can start to expand it. Then we can start to broaden the show, and then it goes from 3 really impactful minutes to 5 impactful minutes to 18 and to 22 impactful minutes from top to bottom. The string is held on, and we got it, you know. And shows hit their stride, but I really feel for the first season, and especially the pilot, this one goes really hard for a network show. You know, really, we need people's support so that people in offices and buildings understand what we're saying. And, you know, don't think I'm crazy when I go in there with the woo snorkel and I'm like, the dialogue needs to be changed or whatever. You know, like, it just, we really, like, me and Melvin have a very interesting relationship. You know, you guys were talking about as actors. Like, usually you guys, you have to carry the water. Melvin carried the soup forever. And it's not until people on the outside, you know, write a book, write memoirs, do things, create a buzz, to give them juice so that they can get movement in the machine. It's
and
really important.
Translating 22 minutes to 7 seasons, you know, and like longevity and, you know, awards for these guys, for this cast who does such an amazing job. Like, that's what we want. And it's an uphill battle, you know, like, we have a tough time slot. Like, you know, we come out Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock, we have no lead in, we have a tough competition. You know, NCIS is against us.
Randall's hotter than Mark Harlan.
So we really do need people to get out and support the show so we can keep making more and so we can show people that there's an audience for this, you know, and that people will tune in.
Yeah, for all the buzz on this, there's so much buzz on this show compared to the other mid-season shows, and we're stuck on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and just going off of your article, I mean, I think in order to create a voice, you sort of need to not be afraid to have your voice out there, even if it isn't like the prettiest picture, because what you wrote took balls to like say, and I think it scared a lot of people because it's like, oh, well, you know, we should just all be so grateful that we're like employed and we have this opportunity. We are grateful, extraordinarily grateful, and that's why personally, I think myself and you as well are taking this opportunity and the gratitude we have for it to sort of open up the conversation and say like, hey, I mean, he's got the balls to say this stuff. Like, you guys out there, say it too. And if you have a show that you want to make, then make that too.
Yeah. The 5 years is just
have a voice.
Yeah, we're just holding the door open long enough for the rest of the people to run through the door. Like, people gotta come through too.
Cannot be another 20 years. Like, I mean, like, there has to be a lot more. So, yeah.
All right, so Randall, that is the perfect segue. It can't be another 20 years. So you have 400 people who are opinion leaders in this city and who have the ability to spread the message. Well, how do we get the message out? How do we publicize this show so that you go the full season, you get the full 7 seasons? that you want.
We need the NSA to tell us who has Nielsen boxes. So we can show up with bows and grease the palms, and just so we can set the DVRs and we'll be gone.
Or the NSA takes out Mark Harmon, that would be one thing.
I like that. Homeland season 5. Okay.
I think what we really need is, so we have like our special premiere, which is February 4th, which is a Wednesday night. We're airing a pilot and another original episode at 8:30 and then at 9:30. And that's their big Wednesday night. So ABC has Modern Family and all their big family comedies. That's going to be a lot of viewers just built into that night. Then the following Tuesday, February 10th, is really where we need people to show up and support the show. That's our normal time slot. And I think just getting the word out, it's really important. Live viewers, like Nielsen boxes, but also they count DVR +3. So if you DVR the show and you watch it within 3 days, that counts. That's really meaningful. And
Obviously social media.
And it's just, it's like if you just are excited to see different stories being told on television, get the word out, and hopefully people.
Yeah, but even more than just our show, like those are things definitely DVR and watch within 3 days, right? But the thing is, the conversation has to continue. Like people have to continue the conversation about like representation, authenticity to a voice, not authenticity to like an amorphous idea of a race, but authenticity to your own voice. Yeah, identity and individualism and like being seen as a person, because the thing that really bugs me out about America is just like, people from the dominant culture get to be whole human beings. But when you're a minority, it's like part of the traits that you want in a man is in the Black community. The other part is in the Latino community. And then the other part is in the Asian community. And it's like, why can't we be whole people? Like there may not be that three things wrong. In the view of like cultural soft power, we're thirds of people, and that sucks.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I
like it. That's perfect.
So everybody knows what their mission is for the next coming weeks, and more importantly, let me turn it over to one of the great organizers of this evening to close things up, Sally Smith.